we're really not very different from any of those people that were in there today. They're all human beings just like us.
Awesome.
One thing I would like to point out, something that I realized while I was here this weekend and also while at the Texas Homeland Security Conference, is that all of these technology and these policies, they don't seem to be driven by some nefarious evil monster behind a curtain. They seem to be driven by corporations who want to make money. And I think our movement needs to probably come to realize that that is the source of a lot of what's happening, and it's not necessarily there's some man behind the curtain who's trying to be a complete totalitarian overseer of the citizenry. It's just a bunch of corporations who have found an opportunity to make money, and they are exploiting the fact that local law enforcement are typically desperate for money and funding. This was even confirmed by a woman who was working a Homeland Security booth. She's like, you need to go talk to the vendors. They're the ones pushing all this. They're the ones driving all of this. And,
wow.
And so convention, we were walking through the vendors, and there was this big military blimp that had cameras inside of it, and I started asking them, well, how many of those do you have that are operational right now, that are out, in the world? And they said, about 12, 13, but it's all military, U.S. and foreign military who are using it, but it has domestic purposes, and it's useful for domestic purposes too. And so that really shows you that this is driven by vendors who want to make money, and not necessarily some evil tyrannical control freak. There are evil tyrannical control freaks out there, and I'm sure a lot of them are in government and in global government.
I love this technology.
Yeah, but for the most part, this is just technology money maker.
The good old-fashioned military-industrial complex.
Yeah. And it just kind of feeds on itself and spirals out of control.
Yes,
basically.
And those companies love having any kind of contract with the government, because if you've got a government contract, it's ridiculous. You'll pay the government.
The twisted thing about military contractors, like let's say I'm a military contractor and I make Humvees. Now some soldier goes to Iraq. It doesn't make a difference to me as a contractor whether those soldiers get out of the vehicle and it gets hit with an RPG and blows it up, or if they all die inside. As a contractor, I hate to say it, they're probably indifferent. They're just like, opportunity to sell another Humvee to the army to replace the one they lost.
Right.
Or maybe they go
flyers, at a conference, totally just get in, like, what could they do? When we came in, we're the independent media. We're here to report on you. We're going to walk through. We're going to ask questions. We're going to
all it takes.
We're going to take copies of all of your documentation. We're going to study you. You're going to research you. You may stick someone to tail us, but we're not going to flip out. We're not going to stress out. We're going to keep smiles on our face, and we're going to keep shaking your hand. We're going to keep talking to you with love. And in the end, we walked out with a thank you for being so respectful from the ladies who initially called security on us.
That's what we need. That's the kind of shit.
That's the shit right there, man. That's the shit.
That's the
humanizing and harmonizing at its finest.
That's what's
the new
going to win.
paradigm.
That's what's going to win the revolution.
Humanize, harmonize, localize.
Yeah.
Why is there no one else in our movement doing this?
I think people have the
They're Stones.
No. Okay. I think, but not by name specifically, but the tactic, because we know what we're talking about when we say edge. We're talking about pumping fear into people. The way that the information is presented is in a fearful manner. It's presented in a way that you're not empowered to do something about it. And here we've got all this video that's about to empower a ton of people who will start doing it. Like, who knows how quick this could take off once other people get motivated.
Yeah, I mean, and in the end. Okay, yeah, so the Fusion Centers have been watching John and I, and they've been watching Operation
And you have
Deviant.
a fan page of government agents.
And they've been looking, they're on our Facebook. But in the end, that is turning into a beautiful thing. It protected us when we showed up in there. If we had not been building those relationships with our own Fusion Centers and going to visit other Fusion Centers, we may or may not have been able to get in with the Austin Free Press, just because while they were waiting for that fax to come in, we stood there and talked to the director of the MIAC, and other people came up and said hi to us, who recognized us, so they saw.
Recognized you from your video.
Yeah. It's okay. So they're watching us. Why is that a bad thing? In the end, that's turned out to be a good thing for us. Yes. Well, a lot of people are so afraid of that. They're like, I don't want the Fusion Center watching me. Well, why not? If you're a good person and you're showing
Yeah.
that,
I-
what's the
I
problem?
understand.
They're
I
gonna
just-
stand up for you in the end.
The whole like, if you have nothing to hide, why are you afraid of me looking in? Like, I hate that argument because that's what they use to infringe on our rights. But at the same time, it's like if we're activists and we're gonna be, whether we like it or not, the face of people that don't agree with these policies. Shit, I personally don't have anything to hide. You can look in my shit all day. Like,
Yeah, because we
whatever.
have no bad intentions.
You know what my policy is on it? Anybody can know any fucking thing about me that they want to know
I can't-
until they want to know it. Then I want to know why they want to know it.
Yeah.
I forgot who it was. They were talking about how they're like, yeah, the FBI used to tap my phone. A bunch of them would quit after they heard me talking too. They agree with me, you know.
Yeah.
Those guys weren't even on our Facebook page or looking.
Literally shaking while we're talking, and
Who was that?
I was the director of the MIAC, and I think it's an emotional thing, you know, when you've got people who are saying, you know, I don't agree with what you're doing, but I'm gonna tell you to your face as a
Yeah.
man, you know, I respect you enough to tell you I don't agree with this, and I love you enough as a person to not condemn you for it,
Yeah.
and you know, I think he appreciates that because he came back. And he walked back a second time and he said, you know what, I've been thinking about it, and, you know, a tour of the MIAC, you know, in the end, it's just an office, and I'm like, exactly, and if people could see that, they would feel so much better.
Yeah, because
You
we
know, they
have
would
some
feel
crazy
so
imagery
much
and
better, yes.
without knowing, we're just left to build our own ideas.
Yes, we think
And
they're
that's weird.
supercomputers
'Cause
with
we
these
are-
analysis, you know, and
We're a little paranoid, and that's a good thing. A healthy amount of paranoia and skepticism is good. We're
Yeah.
kind of letting get the best of
Yeah.
some occasion.
And
And
if
the
you don't want a
director-
police state, like, what are you doing about it? Are you out there meeting police? And I know that's like most people have an aversion to that. I don't want to meet the police. I don't want to meet people that want to take away my rights. But
because it makes you
those are the
sick when
people.
you drive by them.
I still get that feeling, but I talk to them. I got these professors, and I'm trying to work them the same way y'all are working these guys, because they've got connections in Texas and even in Canada and Mexico, like in the law enforcement. These guys have put so much time in. Their Rolodex goes across the country, and these are people we could use in conjunction. Like if I can name drop Fusion Center people that we know, they're like, holy shit, this kid's actually plugged in, is actually interested, and maybe we can go somewhere. If things get really weird, then that would be a good guy to have an email or phone number for. Be like, hey, some of my professors, like, I mean, they spent like 25 years in DPS or Texas Rangers, you know, different occupations, Travis County Sheriff, like people that have friends who are still wearing badges. These guys aren't wearing badges anymore, but they have so many people that do.
I have to say, I'm really grateful that y'all are here and that you guys seem to be as excited and passionate about this, because I know it's been really hard, you know, coming from Missouri, like this shit so intimately affected me because I worked so hard on the Ron Paul campaign, I worked so hard to fight the Real ID, and everything I was doing was making me an, you know, potential violent person in their eyes. And I was, until I met John, I really felt like myself and some of the LRP people were the only people who even knew, let alone cared. And so to know that almost a year later to the day of when, you know, March 6th is when this broke the press. This event last year happened in Kansas City, and that's when this broke to the press. You know, so to know a year later that we've come this far, that there are people who are actually excited about it, and that we could walk in there. You know, a year ago, I didn't even go protest with the ACLU, the Fusion Center Conference, because I didn't know what it was. And to think that this year we walked in and we knew the directors of multiple fusion centers, and they were coming up to us, and, you know, it's gross. It's huge. It's huge.
Make my skin tingle, man. This is incredible.
So big. And to think we're so scared of them. Did you see how scared they were of us?
I think that's always how it is.
Who are these
Shit.
people?
I mean,
What are they doing here?
They're the guys with the guns and everything else, right? Like, that's
Why are they
hilarious.
here? What are they gonna do? They just want information? I don't understand.
I think it's because they believe their own hype.
You
What's
hit
he
it
doing?
right on the head. They read these
What's he
reports,
doing there?
they